Good girl. Good potty. So this morning, we're going to be working with Miss Hiney on her basic leash work, leash pressure, and acknowledgement. Just going to go ahead and let her smell and explore the cones first before the exercise begins. And while she's doing that, we'll touch base on, again, why we're doing leash pressure practice. It's a good basic drill, and because during the evaluation, her mom kind of had to control her the entire time by holding on to a tight leash, right? To kind of keep her under control and to try to give her some guidance. And what we're hoping to do today, start the process, is to teach her that when the leash gets tight and when she's not able to move in a certain direction, it's going to be her cue to refocus. Good girl, good sit, thank you. It's going to be her cue to refocus. Yes, very good, there you go. It's going to be her cue to refocus and pay attention to what's going on. And then that way we can guide her through just verbal commands or with her focus. Because she's a Great Dane Mastiff mix, she's going to get very large and very strong. And so we really don't want her family members to have to rely on strength to control her. We want her to develop her own obedience and her own awareness and focus to be able to get her through most of the walks with her parents and using the leash almost as little as possible. Okay. And the way that we have this set up is we're just going to go through the course, choosing a direction either between the cones to the left or to the right of the cones to kind of guide her through. We're going to use the leash just as a boundary whenever possible and just guide her with her focus and having her follow us, pay attention to us. A lot of other trainers will immediately start adding in extra corrections to make additional impact when the leash is tight to get their attention. But we want to actually work on the opposite for two main reasons. Good girl. The first one is because she's already too used to pulling on her leash or on her collar. And so she's kind of desensitized herself to that, and we need to reprogram her so that way she's more sensitive to pressure as opposed to just adding even more pressure to get her to respond. Okay? And then, because like I said, that goes back to making it easier for the family as opposed to harder. And then also, because she's still such a young pup, I want to take the time to properly train her first before adding in any corrections. And later on down the road, we may need to do those, but especially in the beginning, I'd much rather take the time to make an impact through patience, positive reinforcement, and practice than just by, using a slip lead or a choke chain or popping the leash to increase or make that impact on pressure. It's pretty normal. She's getting distracted by things. So far, the only adjustments we've made to the gear is I've added a bungee there to help ease the impact, and also that way when she starts to get too far, that pressure will increase a little bit more softly and naturally and linearly, right, as opposed to suddenly. So once again, kind of smoothing that out. And then I attached it to both her harness as well as her collar, so that way later on it won't matter if her mother decides to just use a collar or just use a harness. The pressure coming from either one, especially if it's going to be a bigger pup, we don't want to put so much force just on their neck all the time. The pressure coming from both the harness and the collar are kind of distributed together when she pulls too. So that'll make it a little bit more comfortable for her during the learning process. And the last thing is, because she also has a problem with leave it and biting on the leash when she wants to play and interact, I have both a toy with me, but I also brought a chain leash, so that way it'll naturally discourage her from trying to bite on the leash, because it doesn't have that same kind of nice soft texture as most other leashes do. All right, so with all that being said, good girl, I'm gonna go ahead and start walking. Yes, good girl. And if she pays attention to me, I'm gonna go ahead and reward that. And we're gonna walk her through the course with me. All right, so this one I'm going to go in between the cones. Next one here, I want to actually go to the left of the cones. So just gonna hold some leash pressure while she is finishing up her treat. Yes, good girl. And then that's your mark moment. So when she acknowledges that pressure and refocuses back onto you, I'm gonna give her that praise, give her some guidance by showing her which way I'm going. Good girl. And especially at first, I'm gonna give her some treats and everything too. That way she builds a good, strong, positive association with what she's doing. Okay, so here, just holding the leash as a boundary. And she's just letting her nose follow her. And this is when a lot of people would lose patience. Good girl, yes. But that's what I'm looking for, is for her to redirect back onto me on her own, right? And then start telling her which way to go. Good girl, this way. Come, go ahead. And she's getting excited and she wants to engage, that's fine. Yes, good girl. Gonna go in between these two. Now she's gonna overshoot a little bit, so I'm gonna go this way. Yes, good girl. And that's what I'm looking for, okay? So she's going to get distracted because she's a puppy and it's a busy environment because we're outside. And there's lots of other interesting things going on. Right now, I'm not too worried about that. Right now, what I wanna concentrate on is making her feel appreciated every time she redirects her focus back onto me. Right, so she's overshooting there. I actually want to go this way. Yes, good girl. And that's what I'm looking for, is that focus. Overshooting to the right. I want her to go in between the two cones with me. Yes, good girl. And the jumping and everything, like I said, the leash biting is just because she's now excited and engaged and wanting to play. And I'm not going to discourage that right now because she's engaging with me, right? There's all these other smells and everything else going on around the world, but she wants to engage and play with me. So I'm gonna encourage and develop that, and we'll work on the jumping, like I said, and the leash biting and everything on other lessons to combine, right? Sometimes people just get overwhelmed and frustrated because they just try to do too many things all at once. And especially with puppies, you have to understand that if they find that it's a fun game and they want to stay engaged and play with you, you can actually teach them things along the way. This way. Good. Yes. Good job. Right, so she's now paying attention to where I'm going. Good job. I'm gonna play tug with her for a little bit. And then if we want to, very good. Good girl. Right? Control that excitement. Instead of jumping up for the treat and the toys, she gets down and sits and she gets the reward. Same thing here again. Instead of forcing it right now, I want her to do it. Right? I want her to give up, do the right thing, and then get rewarded. Good job. The corrections and everything else we can always do later. So now once again, she's settled down. We'll go back through the cones here. And she wants to bite on the lead, so I'll let her try. And you see how that naturally discourages her because it's just a harder material. Right? And she just went all the way up to the handle part, which is the softer material. And so what you can do to prevent that is just holding the leash up higher. Okay. And what we'll do now, just let her kind of work this out because she's just excited. She wants to play. Yes, good girl. This way. Good. I'm gonna untangle her up a little bit. Good. Good girl. After going in between these cones, we'll go to the left. That leash pressure hits. She acknowledges. Okay. Now we're going to do a little bit of forward pressure. She's just distracted, so we're going to hold. Good girl. Yes, this way. Good. And that's all we're looking for, is for her to be distracted and then refocus her attention back onto us. So she's distracted, right? Following her nose, just using the leash as a boundary. Actually, I'm gonna release the leash because there's an extra treat down there that we dropped. Let her get that. Good. And this is where paying attention to why she's doing things can actually help. Good job. Now when she comes back, we'll reward her in that heel position. And more on that later on. Good girl. Good job. Okay, back through the cones. Good. Then she's gonna overshoot, but we're gonna turn around. Yes, good girl. And I'm not gonna tug her with me, right? I'm gonna add some pressure, and then it's up to her to recognize that pressure and follow me. Good girl. Now she's just following me again. A little bit of pressure, a little bit of release. Okay. I don't want to keep that leash tight. I want to keep it as loose as possible, so when I do need it, I'll have that pressure available. Let her finish her eating. Good. Now we're going to go in between the cones. Yes, good. Right? So a little bit of pressure, directional change. She acknowledges, comes with. Same thing here. She's going to go forward, but I'm going to go back here to the right. Swing in between these cones. She got distracted there. Yes, good girl, this way. She recovers. I give her that praise. She wants to play. I ignore it. Get her back into the heel position. She follows me some more. She stays down on all fours while walking and remains focused. I give her a reward. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Now we're gonna do this exercise every day until she, doesn't really need it anymore. But it can be a really good warm-up exercise as well for situations when she's really excited or at a new location, right? So just kind of letting her know through the practice drills, reminding her the expectations of what she should and shouldn't be doing. So here, we're gonna go ahead and get her out in the environment, let her use her nose, and keep the leash nice and loose. Okay. Here, we'll use it as a boundary. So now she can't go too far behind it, or else she wants to wrap. So I'm just gonna hold. Wait for her to give up. We're just replacing patience with pressure right now. It can be a really difficult thing for a lot of people that feel rushed and always want instantaneous results. Good girl. Okay. Here, we're gonna increase the pressure so she goes on the inside of this hydrant. There you go, release again. Right, so pressure on, pressure off. And I'm waiting for her focus. Right, I'm just gonna let her explore, use her nose. And later on, we'll go through different exercises, how to get her past that. Good girl, very good. So now, much like the cone exercise, she's gonna wanna go to the right. I'm gonna wanna go straight. So I'm gonna hold the pressure straight. Okay. Yes, good girl, this way. Once again, she wants to go to the right. I wanna go straight. Yes, good girl. And down, good job. And then once she's back on focusing on us, give her a reward in that heel position. Continue walking. Good girl. And we'll be mixing in real world practice after more of her drills. And those will be in longer kind of social videos as well. Okay, so now she's stuck in. Yes, good girl. Right? using patience and positive reinforcement as opposed to pressure. Because she's a puppy and I want her to follow me on her own accord as opposed to having to pull her all the time. Because like I said, that will be very exhausting, especially as she gets bigger, both for her as well as for her family and her mom. We want to make things as easy as possible for everybody. Good girl. You following me? You following me? Huh? Good girl. This way. Oh, good job. So a sudden directional change there. No leash pressure. She just recognized it because she was paying attention to me. Staying down on all fours for treats and toys. Oh, good job. Good. As she stays down, she's going to go ahead and continue to reward her. Good job. Going to start walking now. And that leash pressure is going to build. And that right now, instead of pulling, yes, good girl. I want her to release herself from that pressure, right? I don't want to have to pile on that pressure so she's forced to come. I want to have enough pressure. Yes, good girl. That it's easy for her to recognize, like right here, and just hold. It's a lot easier, yes, good girl, for her to refocus and come this way, and it's impossible for her to fail and go the other way. I just want to try to set her up for success as much as possible, especially considering she is such a young puppy. She's been doing really well. Right, there we go. So she thinks I have a treat, so she's going to jump up for it. And I'll hold out here. Good girl, good down. Down. Once again. Good down. To make it harder, we'll actually have a treat, right? I'm not going to ask her to do it. She's going to do it on her own. We're not going to force her down. Good job. Now when all four paws are on the ground, we'll give her that reward. Good girl. So we'll do a couple more rounds of the formal training drills, and maybe one or two more of the real life training exercises, and then we'll give her a break and we'll work on her boarding mate. And then after she rests, we'll do it again. I think the next update video will definitely be for sure more of a regular neighborhood walk. She's doing really well. Yeah. Good girl.